But okay, so that's all the good parts. Now let's talk about the bad parts.
All right.
What are some of the challenges of engineering racking systems for solar?
I think that's a good question. We never consider the wind action loadings onto structures as of now. Now you get a glimpse of what is actually on the Australian standards that is related to solar. I think it's pretty still in a young stage because it could be developed a little bit more in the Australian standards. Some areas are still subjective, but it's very interesting. It pretty much gives you an idea how to calculate the pressure that the wind will action on that structure, on that system at that very location. So most of the times when we consider solar systems, either the roof mount or ground mount, we have to consider all the surroundings. So it's very interesting for me to understand how it developed, starting from how to select a terrain category, or you start developing new concepts that you will then use on a day-to-day, such as shielding. Is your structure shielded by anything? Where is the critical points of that structure? What could happen in the event that it will fail? So many things to consider. Also, the importance level. Is that structure going to be surrounded by a very large mass of people? You know, if worse comes to worse and it would fail, how many people you could potentially harm or even kill? So it's very delicate. People sometimes don't understand so many things behind it, but yeah, it's and I believe that construction and solar will go together hand in hand in the future. There's already been major developments in BIPV, building integrated photovoltaics, and it goes together. I think it has to be towards that in the future.
Okay, so that's an interesting point because, you know, I guess a lot of installers can assume that every building you can find a way to get solar on. Is that true?
That's not true, not at all, not necessarily. But the positive thing that I think we offer is that we have a site-specific certificate that we can design. We have the generics that cover off most of the scenarios, but obviously when you need to adapt and customize a solution, then you start to evaluate different alternatives, using other rails, using other anchoring methods, maybe playing around with whatever you've got in your head. We've installed at 220 meter high on the Sydney CBD. So that gives you an idea. What do you think could happen at 200 meters high? You know, the gust winds, the speeds of and how is that structure gonna react to that movement? Because we have to figure out that it's not just a building. There are actually two structures. Is the racking structure attached to another structure? So it has a connection or a link between them, and it's very interesting.
That's a good point. I mean, yeah, I used to work I used to do cable. I used to run cables for a living back in the day in the telecommunications space. And I remember we used to service. It wasn't a 200 meter high building. It was probably only a 50 meter high building in the Melbourne CBD. But we used to have to get up on the roof sometimes, and it's a completely different feeling, you know, with the winds that can come through at that height. So it's not the same as just getting up on a house or a normal commercial building. You know, you've got some serious winds that can come through at that height. So it is a bit of a challenge,
especially Melbourne with the weather. It's unpredictable, you know. And
yeah, how does this differ from, how do the roofs or the buildings and the roof structures differ in Melbourne from your experience compared to places like Venezuela?
Well, I think on tropical countries, you see that there's a lot of humidity, but in terms of the direction in which the wind can change so abruptly, it's not that as I consider here in Melbourne, which is very windy, and you have to consider that every wind front could be possible, and in any direction the wind can blow. Close to like tornado winds speeds. So we've seen 150 k's an hour winds here. It's not very common in a tropical country, but you have different factors that could be an issue. That yeah, humidity, and also I think if the with regards to an efficiency of the system, it really depends on how do you install it, in which direction, and the latitude that you're facing the sun. Yeah.